Joining us now to discuss President Trump's speech at the United Nations General Assembly is Bart Marcois, former career diplomat and energy department official, former presidential campaign policy advisor, and president of Marcois Partners International Corporation. So, first of all, good afternoon to you, Bart. After a
Good
5 year
afternoon, Don.
absence, good afternoon. What stood out to you about Trump's remarks today, and how would you describe the tone?
Oh, I've said frequently, people have the wrong idea about diplomacy. The United Nations is supposed to be the ultimate seat of diplomacy where we can solve things instead of going to war. And people like to say that diplomacy is smooth talking and easygoing and soothing voices and so forth, and that the essence of diplomacy is tact and politesse. But they're wrong. The essence of diplomacy is clarity. Clarity. To say clearly what you expect from your diplomatic partners, from other governments, and from other leaders. And President Trump lived up to that definition of diplomacy today. He was clear. He made it clear what he expects. He made it clear what he thinks are the mistakes. And I agree with him. Those are the mistakes of the UN and the failings of the UN. He could not have been more clear. Nobody went away from there wondering, what does the United States want? And for that matter, what do the American people want? Because this is exactly what the American people elected Trump to do.
Do you see potential for the United Nations? Because President Trump today says he sees a lot actually of potential from the UN, but as of right now, they're not getting there yet.
The UN has tremendous potential, but for the last 20 years, 30 years maybe, they've not lived up to it. But especially in the last 10 or 12 years, the Clinton administration, the Obama administration, the Biden administration saw the United Nations and other multilateral treaty organizations as a way to sneak in policies into the United States that they could never pass by law through the Congress, through American legislative principles, but they would sign treaties, international treaties, committing, obligating the United States to certain actions under those treaties, certain duties and responsibilities that nobody in America ever voted for, but they would sign these things and then say, well, we have an international obligation. This is a treaty obligation under the Constitution. That's part of that forms the basis of U.S. law, and and so the United Nations has become a burden to the governments that form it and to the nations that form it, not a blessing. And President Trump rightly called them out for that.
So I want to get your reaction on some of the specifics here of what Trump said during his speech. So one major point I feel was that he was saying the UN was supporting uncontrolled migration, actually supporting that. What are your thoughts?
Well, he not only said it, but he brought the receipts to prove it. He said they spent $372 million last year alone, 2024 alone, on America alone, paying for illegal aliens to work their way up from Latin America up through Mexico and across our southern borders. They funded them. They gave them food and water and comfort, and they gave them what do you call it? Credit cards, debit cards to spend to buy things. They were funding this mass migration. And what they were funding was human trafficking. They were not bringing people to a better life. They were funding human misery. All of the people that crossed our southern border had to pay a coyote, a human smuggler, to cross the border to get through that final hurdle of Mexico's territory. Many of them had to pay smugglers farther south, and and a lot of those people were children. They were minors. We have lost over 300,000 of them. The Trump administration has made it a priority to try to find them, but the Biden administration lost over 300,000 children, unaccompanied children, and nobody knows where they are. The Trump administration has found over 50,000 of them, but where are the rest of them? Are they living in slavery? Are they living with relatives? Are they living in some kind of difficult circumstance? We don't know. And the UN was funding all of that and pretending that they were being virtuous and pretending that they cared about humanitarian affairs. And they didn't. All they cared about was destabilizing the United States. And they're doing the same in every industrialized country. They're doing the same in Western Europe, Eastern Europe, Central Europe, Asia. I've been speaking with a lot of people from Korea lately. They have a problem there with illegal migration. The UN has helped facilitate all of this. They've not done a thing to stop it.
So President Trump touched on a lot of points there, but Bart, do you think there was a overarching theme or message, perhaps, that President Trump is sending to, allies and perhaps adversaries as well of the United States?
Yeah, there was, and I can encapsulate it in three words. You are broken. You, the United States, the United Nations, are broken. Starting with the escalator going up, that was clearly done on purpose. That was clearly, the escalator doesn't just suddenly stop as the President of the United States and the First Lady step onto it, and then there are conveniently placed some reporters right there to shout questions at him. And then the teleprompter didn't work. That's an old stagehands trick. When you don't like a performer, you just make sure that something goes wrong with the sound or the lighting when that performer gets on stage. Going back 150 years to vaudeville days, that's what people have been doing to express displeasure with somebody. And President Trump, of course, brushed it off, called them out for it, said, "You're broken. Your building is broken. Your mechanisms are broken. Your structure, your political structure is broken, and you decision makers are making broken decisions. You're not doing anything to improve the lives of anybody in the world. Everything you're doing here is putting an additional burden on the world, whether it's energy policy, climate change policy, migration policy, anything. You're putting burdens on people. That's not what you were made for. You're broken."
Now, I can't confirm if it was on purpose, but I did find it funny that President Trump pointed out that he stopped 7 wars all by himself. He was questioning where was the UN at that time, and that all he got from the UN was, as you mentioned, a broken escalator and a broken teleprompter.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on how some U.S. allies are now recognizing Palestinian statehood?
Oh, I think it's shameful. I think that they should be ashamed of themselves. The Hamas, the Gazans, and Israel were on the point of signing a peace deal, at least a ceasefire, and then Emmanuel Macron opened his big mouth and said they were going to recognize Palestinian statehood, trying to curry favor with people in his coalition, his leftist coalition. And that day, the peace talks stopped. And since that day, there's been no talk of releasing the hostages or of ending the war. They could have, I don't know how many people have died. I don't know how many hostages have died. I don't know how many Palestinian civilians have died because the war had to continue because Macron and then Starmer opened his mouth, and the Canadians, and I forget how many other people have gone. There have been some real staunch people saying, I saw a comment from an Italian politician saying, "What Palestinian state? What borders? What leaders? There is no such thing as a Palestinian state. What is there to recognize?" And all you're doing there is prolonging misery. If you want to end misery, end the war, release the hostages, end the war. Stop trying to kill your opponents. Stop, tell the Palestinians, give up Hamas, give up the leadership, stop trying to murder every Jew in the world, and then you'll have peace. Then you'll have an end to the war.
Bart, on Fox News today, Secretary Marco Rubio said that world leaders are begging to be involved in President Trump's peace discussions and that Trump is the only indispensable leader right now in the world. Your thoughts on that?
He's absolutely right. Name one other leader that other countries are going to saying, will you please solve our problems for us? Nobody's going to Vladimir Putin and asking him to solve any problems. Nobody's going to Xi Jinping and asking him to solve problems. They are going looking for handouts. They're looking for money in some cases, which they're not really going to get. But President Trump is right. The 7 wars that he talked about that he solved, he didn't go knocking on their doors and saying, what can I do to help you boys? They came to him and they said, can you help us? Can you end this? And he said, yes, yes, I think I can. Let's sit down and let's make a deal. Let's find a place. Again, that's diplomacy, looking for common ground, looking for what is it that you absolutely cannot live without, what is it you absolutely must have, and going to each side and hammering them and saying, I will bless this ceasefire, this peace, if you give up this and if you give up that and if you come together. he I work with foreign countries. I can't go into too much detail, but I work with foreign countries all the time. Every one of them, when they come here, they say, how can I get President Trump to approve this program or that project or that idea? It's all about President Trump. He is the indispensable leader.
So, Bart, I want to end on this question. Do you think President Trump's speech and remarks today at the UN, could that spark some kind of change or perhaps reform for the United Nations?
I think it will. I think it will. He called out the Europeans for allowing migration into their countries, called out Greece and said, look, more than uh, half of the people in your jails are from other countries. They're illegal aliens that came there and now they're committing crimes. He mentioned several other countries that were up in the 70% range. Same thing. He said, you've got to close your borders. You've got to expel foreigners. You have to reclaim your heritage, your traditions, your language, your ideas. And he said, implicitly, he didn't say this explicitly, but the implication was, if you don't, you can kiss United States support goodbye. And I think everybody realizes that. They sat there, they didn't like it, they didn't like being lectured, but they know without the United States, the United Nations ceases to matter. And and he is giving them a very clear message. Next year, if there is not reform on energy policy, climate change policy, migration policy, and the policy of wars, I think you'll see a serious material change in the relationship between the United States and the United Nations.
And perhaps we'll have you back next year to talk to us about it. Well, anyway, Bart, I really enjoyed the conversation today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.